I'm here with Suzanne Lanthier. Now, I've only known her really with one title, and that was Director of the Development for Grand Theatre. And we've got to know her pretty well over the years. But Suzanne, you're not that anymore. What is it you're transitioning to?
I'm transitioning to the same title, but just at another theater, Theater Aquarius in Hamilton, Ontario. So after about 7 years, I decided to leave the Grand for some new challenges just down the road, down the 403 at that Theater Aquarius.
Yeah, well, it'd be interesting to hear how you make out there. But for right now, can we go back a few years and talk about when we kind of first met and had a talk? I think it was you and Deb Harvey, the executive director, asked Jane and I for a meeting. Do you remember that? And we came down to the Grand and we were overlooking Richmond Row. And do you remember that talk?
I do. I do. I have very fond memories of that talk. And it was honestly, it was close to the beginning of my tenure at the Grand too. So it was a very exciting time. And I remember very distinctly when Deb and I talked about the concept and the idea that you and Jane were speechless about, and I could sort of see the wheels moving about what the impact could potentially be. So I do have fond memories of that. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's true that the gears in my head were swimming. We weren't sure what it was about, but when you two talked to us about it, I began connecting all these dots in my head. For instance, right around that time, CBC Sounds of the Season had started up. So they do these stories about the food bank for the whole month of December. Of course, what you and Deb were talking to Jane and I about were these programs for the month of December. And I just started seeing all these other things that could connect with it. And I think that's one of the beauties of the Grand. We work with a lot of different groups, right? But when it comes to the Grand, you just realize its following is fairly diverse. It comes from different parts of the city, even outside of the city. So if the Grand is going to partner with you to do something, the chances are really good. It will transcend a lot of normal boundaries and draw other people in. But do you remember what it was that you and Deb had said that you had wanted to do for that month of December?
Yeah, I do. It was actually an idea that was really born out of our artistic director Dennis Gardam, who had recently arrived from Theater Aquarius. And at Theater Aquarius, it seems to be sort of a prevailing theme of theaters across Canada. But at Theater Aquarius, Dennis said that they had been doing a tradition called Toonies for Turkeys every year, where at the end of every performance, one of the cast members, typically the lead, they did a Christmas Carol over a number of seasons at Theater Aquarius, and the actor that played Scrooge would get up and make an appeal about the need in the city of Calgary and ask for monetary donations. So we Dennis came in with the idea, and Deb and I just said, well, let's talk to Jane and Glenn. I mean, because Deb knew both of you from before, and let's see what we can do. We went into it with really no expectations whatsoever, not really knowing what to expect in terms of the outpouring of support that we've received from our patrons. But so it was really the presentation of sort of this concept of, hey, what do you think if we were to do this?
And oh my gosh, what a great thing it was. I remember we came to opening night, not knowing quite what to expect, but here you have Ebenezer Scrooge, right? Just as grumpy as all get out, normal. And of course, the story of Christmas carols, the transformation that Ebenezer goes through. And I mean, it was just so beautifully done. And the music and everything was just so great. And Jane and I just lapped it right up. But then it ends. And then the cast kind of recedes, and then Ebenezer stands at the front of the stage, right? And begins
Yeah.
to talk to people about hunger in London. And it just seemed to be a continuation of the transformation he had just been going through for the last hour and a half. And here he was, speaking about people that were marginalized or people that, weren't being included in regular society stuff. It was just so powerful. And I can't remember. And then the cast came out and they started collecting for the food bank. And I can't remember how much it was. It was a really generous donation that night. But the fit was perfect. What was your impression that night when you saw that? Like you watched the play, and I'm sure you enjoyed it as much as we did. But
I
then,
watched it every night of the run, to be honest with you. It was such a for
Yeah.
me, it was such a magical,
Yeah.
it was a magical ending to the show. I remember getting goosebumps every single night when the snow would come down, when Jared, our head of flies, would be putting snow down into the audience, and it was pretty incredible. Ben Campbell was our original Scrooge in that first year of production, and he was remarkable in how he spoke about the need in London. And I remember we tried to marry the message about the need with our audience sizes, and how the need every month at the food bank in London was 10 times the amount of people that were sitting in the audience. So I think that was really helpful, in because I remember audible gasps when he would say that stat, and I get goosebumps now thinking about it too, about how high the need is. And then I also remember, as part of that show, the cast, who were so generous with their time after a long show and a very demanding show, and the last scene where they're on rollerblades making like they're skating around, they would whip off the stage and take off the rollerblades, and I would be out in the lobbies most performances at the end, and they would run up the stairs as fast as they could to get positioned within the lobby spaces to meet the audience members and accept the donations. It was really just it was an incredible just so incredible for all of us that were there. And then I will say this too, it was a full company commitment, because our staff on the mornings after, we would gather in our lounge, and we would count, and it was an incredible. So we have really everybody throughout the building, everybody who participated in it in some way, shape, or form, in Humbug to Hunger year number one, in some way, shape, or form. So it was really an incredible way of galvanizing the entire staff around Humbug to Hunger.
And then it morphed a bit, right? In later years, you ended up with a female character playing Ebenezer Scrooge, which was so unique. And I remember the places being packed, and people loving it so much. But it had a different flavor to it, you know.
The incredible Jan Alexander
Yeah,
Smith, who
she was
who
awesome, and then
really
he spoke at
she's
the end.
just
Yeah.
yeah, and she is so she's so beloved by London audiences, and she has played so many roles on our street stage, and just so beloved. And her message, you didn't think you can't imagine that it would get better than what Ben had to say, but it was just her message. She was just, she felt it. You could see that she felt it deep down.
No. And then, what was wonderful is that the cast decided to come down to the food bank and sort food. And what was amazing about that was that many of them stayed in dress that they would normally be in the play. And so I remember coming down and doing some video with my camera. And here were all our food bank volunteers. They had really no idea this was going to be happening. And then all of a sudden, these people with top hats and long coats and scarves and all that kind of stuff were all walking around. They're helping to sort food. And I remember the volunteers were just kind of in a state of shock. And it wasn't just the fact that the Grand was coming down, but they chose to stay in costume when they did that. And I remember just the feeling about that poverty has lingered with us for that lengthy period of time, ever since the time of Charles Dickens, obviously. But here was the cast coming down, and suddenly it wasn't the Grand anymore, putting on something to help the food bank and hoping people would come in to see it. They took the show on the road, so to speak, into the food bank warehouse. And I think our volunteers got a chance to see a different side to the Grand that they hadn't before. They got to work side by side with Jane Alexander or other cast members. You were there for that too, I remember. But did you feel that that was as transformative as it is that I felt that it was?
It really was. And from my perspective, this is something that we had organized with you and Jane, and we
Hmm.
had to obviously get a date that was going to work well, both for our cast and for the volunteers down at the food bank. And for a lot of the cast that participated, this was their day off. This was their chance to sort of take a break from the rehearsals and from the grind. And it is quite a grind to
Hmm.
get a show of that size up on the stage. So what I took away from that was like how generous they were with their time, and how, we got on. I remember getting in onto a bus. We rented a bus to sort of bring ourselves down there, and we were all in, super festive moods and getting off, and it was quite, the positivity stayed throughout, and but I think it was really, for me personally, and I know for the cast, who were just so grateful at the end to have been able to do that, that it was a way for all of them to really understand what the need was, and how hard, the volunteers at the food bank work to do this, and how it's not, it's serious business. Feeding our citizens is really serious business, and checking the labels and making sure that everything is safe, and making sure that everything is sorted, and making sure that all of that, it was less of like, oh, we're going to sort this, it was really serious business, and they took it quite seriously. I mean, we had a few little fun competitions. I remember Deb, she's super competitive, and so competitions about sorting, but it was really a great opportunity for everyone to sort of come full circle and really have a good understanding about what it is, why we were making the asks, and what the needs were, and the support team behind them, including you and Jane and the volunteers and that type of thing.
And then it morphed again into the next year, and then it became Mary Poppins. And I remember how magical that was as well. But how was that as a shift? Was it hard letting go of Christmas Carol and going towards that, or no? It just
Well, the hardest thing of letting go was letting go of our cute little tagline of humbug to hunger. But the we came our I think that year we came up with supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And poor Deb Hay, who was the Mary Poppins in the show, had to get that one out every single night after a 2.5 hour performance. So, it really wasn't hard. I mean, again, we have such incredible casts around, and we do draw a lot of our casts, particularly for our holiday show, from London. Like Mark Ure, who played Bert in that show, is from London. His family's from London. We have a lot of, our junior cast from London. So it was, having Londoners actually speak about the need in London, is really just adds an extra bit of weight. And, all throughout the time, I remember, again, in probably in the Mary Poppins years, I remember distinctly so many families coming up to us, people coming up to us, making donations in the lobby spaces, and having a few families actually saying, you know what, I've had to use the food bank myself, so I just want to give back. It's just remarkable, that the families that have to use it, the individuals that have to use the food bank, that find themselves in that situation, it's as diverse as the audiences that are coming into the Grand, clearly.
and now you've gone and morphed it again. So what is it that's happening this year? I mean, actually, it starts shortly, but what's going on this year?
This year, our holiday production of the Grand Theater is Elf, and I'm going to get the name wrong because I haven't been through there at the Grand throughout the time, but it has something to do with sparkle, jingle, tingle, jolly. So the team has come up with, as I understand it, a fun and fantastic name. And Izetta, who is playing the lead role of Buddy the Elf. And that's another important thing to remember too, is that, at the beginning of rehearsal process, when the cast and the staff team are standing around in a circle for the first rehearsal, Dennis, has already made the ask of the lead to make the ask. So Izad signed on, of course, immediately, and so Sparkle, Jingle, Tingle, that's a song in Elf that's super, super fun. So after 2 years of first an online offering, and then last year we had reduced audience sizes, it'll be super fun to be back in full houses again and really maximizing the donations for the food bank.
That's right. In that first year, I remember when we sat down and had that first talk with you and Deb, we really appreciated that Dennis had introduced that as maybe an idea that could be pursued. But I remember somehow in that conversation, business cares kind of fit into that discussion. And I remember how interesting it was to see that, those back then, I think it was like 500 businesses that were part of business cares. I knew it was, we really appreciated that the Grand decided we'll help the food bank, but we'll come under the business cares envelope to do that. But for the businesses that were there, that was really new and different. And then I remember when we had the kickoff for the Business Cares Drive, you had some of the folks from the cast come up and do stuff. And for those businesses, that was totally new. They hadn't seen anything like that before. But how did you think that the fit went with Business Cares over the years? It started right then and it's continued since.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I remember, the first thing that Jane said was, "We need to put you in touch with Wayne Dunn. You need to be part of Business Cares." And so we did that. Went to the first meeting and met like this incredible human being, Wayne Dunn, who has done so much for the city over the years. And it was great. Like we were really the only not-for-profit sitting around the table of these extraordinary business leaders across London. And to be able to share what we were doing and to also hear the passion of what everyone else around the room was doing, it's really been a win-win for us. I've made some great personal friends out of that business cares committee,
Yes.
and the grant has made some amazing corporate connections through business cares. We hosted just before the pandemic. Mandy Fields, another extraordinary human being, asked us to host a Tampon Tuesday around the opening of Room, and we had Emma Donahue come out and speak. And I remember this. We talked about this. This was, 3 days before everything shut down in the world. We had a packed crowd in what was then our McManus, is now our Auburn Theater. And we had like just scads and scads of female sanitary products, and it was an amazing and extraordinary night. We had no idea what was about to face us in the coming days, but really the relationships that we've formed have just been extraordinary. I'll name in particular, Mike Carter in the LDCA, who Mike he's a theater guy through and through, and he's done everything in his power to help marry what the LDCA does with what the Grand Theater does. And it's my understanding that this year the LDCA is holding their big sort of year-end gala at the Grand in conjunction with DELF, and we were working on ways of how we maximize the impact the LDCA is going to have with the funness of the ELF show. So it's just such a win-win. It really is an extraordinary group of people.
And just to be clear, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars here. That's what's happened over the course of this run, and I know it continues, and we appreciate it. But this wasn't some just get together holiday kind of celebration. Let's pass the hat and see how it goes. This is a well organized effort, fully embodied in the cast itself and in the staff of the Grand. But it just became such a major success. But when you look at it cumulatively over the years, this was all happening at the same time our numbers were going up. So when we first talked about that first year, back then we were helping about 2,100 families a month. Now it's 4,000. We're
Yeah.
in record territory. And when you consider the agencies that we're helping, it's 21,000 people we are helping every month. Now, fortunately for us, the grant has stayed with us through all of that, right? Because as that has increased, business cares has become even more important. The grant has become more important. But I hope that you and the folks from the grant realize we weren't just a group always at the same level. We were a group that every year was getting more and more challenged. And for every
Mhm.
year to be able to come by and still see these partners still coming and putting out the way that they were, that's meant so much to us, Suzanne. It has, because what we're up against now is something we've never been through in our 36-year history. So still having the Grand on side really means something to us. I hope everybody there knows that.
Well, I think so. The other thing too, Glenn, is that, there's no question that there's been a number of businesses and industries that have been really hard hit through the pandemic. But I will say, as someone that sees the impact on the theater industry um, up close and personal, that the actors, the production teams, the talented folks who work both on and off the stage, was a pretty that was a group that was hit really hard with everything shutting down, and this is what folks in our industry go to school for. They train. This is their passion. This is their life's work, and to have that taken away from them, as many other families did. That I don't know this to be a fact, but I wouldn't doubt that there are many in the theater industry who actually had to access food bank as well. So again, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens this year. And I know that it's always impactful for the cast and the production team and the staff of the Grand, and other theaters that do the work as well. But this year will be extra special, I think, and people will feel it probably more deeply in a more personal way than they ever have before.
Yeah. I remember when the cast came down and they were sorting food, and I was talking to one of the cast members about that. We helped 25 other agencies. Well, he didn't know that. He thought that
Yeah.
what they were doing, for him, was that he was helping the food bank because he really believed in the food bank. But I think it's really true that the cast of the Grand, and the Grand as an organization, has helped all of these other organizations year after year after year. That doesn't come to just the food bank; it gets spread around through the whole community. And the Grand is a community organization. In fact, you're like a nonprofit, right? Like, I think a lot of people don't understand that. How does that work?
Well, we are a not-for-profit theater. The Grand is a not-for-profit theater, and so that was one of the things that we thought about. When Dennis came to us with the idea first, we did think, well, wait a second here. At the end of the year, we actually go out and ask for donations to support the theater and the activities and the youth programming and all the community outreach that we do. How is this going to impact that? And in fact, it really had no impact at all, and in fact it just helps us solidify what we are, who we are as a community partner. So it's been quite remarkable in that regard, that the people of London, as you know, are incredibly generous, and people have passions, and people have multiple passions.
Yeah.
People who donate to the arts community also donate to our health, to the health sector, and to child welfare, and to that type of thing. So the people of London give as much as they can possibly give. That I know for sure. So it really it's really, as a not-for-profit theater, yes, we do rely on donations. Ticket revenue does not covers about 70%, 60 to 70% of, our overall revenue. And we do have to rely on donations and corporate sponsorships in order for us to meet a balanced budget. So, but again, as I say, like this year-end appeal hasn't really impacted us at all to the negative. It's in fact, it's probably helped us out.
I think it makes people appreciate you more. But
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because that mindset, the not-for-profit mindset, I mean, I think that leads the organization to do some interesting things that you might not normally think of. For instance, you had an outreach to high schools, right? And I know that was something that Dennis believed in a lot too, but how did that work out?
Are you talking about the 100 schools program?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. 100.
So our 100 schools program was came as a result of us not being able to do enough with. It was actually the public school level. It was the primary level schools that we actually do a lot in the community for high school aged kids, and we have a student club. We have a high school project. A lot of our offerings on both of our stages appeal to high school based kids of high school age, but we don't do a lot for the younger kids. So when Dennis arrived, again, another one of his commitments was, instead of bringing the schools that can afford to come and that are within a close geography of the Grand, instead of bringing those limited kids into the theater, we're going to go out to the schools in the area. And so our first year of 100 schools program, we had 100 schools, and we provided a professional theater production in gyms, in libraries, sometimes in hallways, and it was for the entire school. So whether the school was kindergarten to grade 8 or kindergarten to grade 5, the entire school participated, and the entire school took part in it. And so So our first year we hit 30,000 kids, something like 300,000 kilometers we traveled, and we started out. So we started far away from the schools that really could never come to the Grand, and the teachers that could never come to the Grand, and the students. So we started out and then we worked our way back in. We work with the school boards closely to identify the high need schools and the schools that really didn't get a whole lot of that extra. And so it was incredible successful program, and we're really proud of that. Our second year of 100 schools unfortunately had to be cut short because of COVID. But who knows what's in store for the future of that program. I know that the teachers and the students really, really loved it.
Suzanne, we're going to miss you. We've become friends through this process, I know, and it's been wonderful. But really, for people like Jane and I, for our volunteers, I know about Dennis and how creative and how wonderful he is, and about the casts as well, and those that work at the Grand. But really, it was you and Deb that became the face of the Grand to us. You were the ones that we were dealing with, and always it was positive. Always it was about what can we do to help. Always you were trying to help Jane and I to get down to see some of the performances, or you were trying to get the cast to come to the food bank. I really think that I've known the Grand for a lot of years, but in the last number of years, it's taken on this human face that's very diverse. It's not just one segment of London. It's all these different areas of it are coming. It's a melee all around there of all these different people always doing these different things. I hope that you sense, and that Deb senses, that you've transformed the place, not just the building. I know it's been through all sorts of renovations, but and not just within the Grand, but how the community now sees the Grand is totally different. It's essential, I think, and it reflects. People look at the Grand and see themselves in it, and no matter where they're from. And I just think that that's so wonderful, and you've accomplished that, and I hope you know that, and I know that you'll take that to Hamilton, but I hope you know that so much of that is due to you, Suzanne.
Thanks, Glenn. It's really exciting as I in my first couple of weeks at Theatre Aquarius in Hamilton, I come to find out that they do a similar type of support of their Hamilton food share program. So my heart just I felt so happy that was happening, and I think that Theatre Aquarius, the Grand Theatre, Theatre Calgary, I think are just three of probably the many theaters, professional theaters across Canada who are working to support their local food programs. So it's been a delight. It's been a delight, and I know that I can't wait to go into the Grand and see Elf myself and be part of the audience. So yeah, it's been a delight to get to know you and Jane and all of the folks on the Business Cares Committee.
Well, tomorrow morning I'm going to make a phone call to Hamilton because Joanne Santucci, who's the head of Hamilton Food Share, has been at food banks almost as long as we have, and we're great friends and stuff. But I want to let her know, just personally, what we think of you and what you've done for us, and just to express our appreciation. Thank you for what you've done for London. I know you're staying here, right? And you're going
Yeah.
to commute for now. Is that correct?
Yeah, I feel like very much it's my home city. So I'm commuting to Hamilton for as long as my car and my mental health will allow. But yeah, I feel very much a part of this community and helping out on grocery weekend this year again. So I'm excited about that.
You've done wonders for this city, Suzanne. Thank you. And you've been the face of a lot of that stuff. And your enthusiasm, I think, really drew a whole bunch of us. And thank you for that. I wish you all the best this Christmas. And I wish you all the best too in Hamilton. I'm sure that they're going to be very lucky to have you. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you so much.